This man posed as his wife's ex-boyfriend, he stalked her, and then he took her life. 43-year-old Chris Steele Krug began receiving messages from an unknown number in October 2023. This person claimed to be a man named Anthony, which was Chris Steele's ex-boyfriend from 20 years ago. Chris Steele ignored all his messages until one day Anthony sent a photo of her husband leaving work. So she's thinking, okay, this stalker knows where my husband works, so she calls the police and reports what's going on and tells them that she's scared for her life.
This month, I have received numerous text messages, and then today I got an email that is very threatening.
Chris Steele then found what seemed to be a tracker on her car, and then the following month she went to police again and basically begged them to find this man. But unfortunately, they were not quick enough because on December 14th, 2023, Chris Steele's husband Daniel calls police and asks if an officer can go to his house and check on his wife because she stopped answering his text messages. When police arrived to their home, they found Chris Steele beaten and stabbed multiple times in the garage. At first, Daniel seemed visibly distraught and said that her stalker Anthony was responsible. However, Anthony was interviewed that same day and he lived in Utah, and mind you, Chris Steele was in Denver, and there was no way he was able to travel that quickly. It wasn't long until investigators noticed that Daniel's story wasn't adding up. For instance, when Chris Steele was murdered, the cameras inside the home were turned off, which only Chris Steele and Daniel had access to. Investigators also traced the emails and text messages Chris Steele received, and guess where it all came back to? Yep, it was linked to Daniel's workplace. His search history also had things like how hard would you have to hit someone in the head to make them unconscious. There was so much evidence that pointed the finger to him, and he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. You know what I find so chilling? After Daniel waited in the garage for his wife to arrive from dropping the kids off at school, he took her life and then he went and grabbed coffee right after like it was just another day.
Everyone always talks about Annabelle, but there are so many other creepy objects in the Warren Museum. I'm Kaylin, follow along because I'll be going through some of them, but this is known as the Satanic Idol. Now, according to the Warren Museum, this doll was found in the woods of Connecticut near Sandy Hook by a hunter. When the hunter came upon this, he obviously didn't know what it was, but he could see that there was a man in black robes running away from the doll. He didn't really know what else to do, so he called the Warrens, and once they picked it up, Lorraine fell very sick. Doctors checked her out, said that there was nothing wrong with her, so they knew that whatever was happening to Lorraine had to be coming from this doll. And that's how they realized that the man in the robes in the woods was probably the leader of a satanic cult, and whatever was happening to Lorraine was probably because of a curse that they had put on this doll. So now it remains in their collection with another one of the most mysterious items they own, known as the Pearls of Death. The legend of the Pearls of Death says that anyone who wears these pearls will be choked by them. And that's how they ended up in the Warren Museum in the first place. The woman who owned them said that every time she put them on, they mysteriously started suffocating her. So they think the pearls are cursed, as they say in this handmade sign, but usually there's another sign there that says do not touch them because of this curse.
Yo, what's up? Here's some scary facts about our world that you probably didn't want to know. Part 39. In 2007, a woman entered a radio contest in which she ended up drinking 1.5 gallons of water, which resulted in her death, and it was all because she wanted to win a Nintendo Wii console. There's an invention known as a mort safe, and its whole objective is to protect dead bodies from grave robbers and necrophiliacs, which are people that do inappropriate things with dead bodies. On the island of Sardinia, there's a type of goat cheese, and its main ingredient is, I kid you not, maggots. At a combined length of 25 feet, you could easily use your intestines as a rope and rappel from the 3rd floor of any building. That's pretty terrifying to know that your intestines are that long.
There are some crazy things happening in the world right now. South Korea is putting traffic lights on the ground for people who look down at their phones all the time, which, dang, honestly, America, let's do it. That's kind of a good idea. I can imagine that in like New York City and San Francisco. Scientists just confirmed that a single lightning bolt stretched 515 miles from Texas to Missouri back in 2017. That makes it the longest lightning bolt strike ever recorded. Japan just broke the world record for internet speed by hitting 1.02 petabits per second. I don't know how much that is, but apparently it's enough to download all of Netflix in 1 second. The world's oldest baby was born from an embryo frozen in 1994 last month, so technically this newborn baby is over 30 years old. A man in Australia barked at 2 people trying to steal his car in the middle of the night. Netflix used AI for the first time ever in one of its original shows, and they said it was 10 times faster than traditional video effects. Ooh, here we go.
These are some extremely unsettling facts, and I found all these on Reddit. Number 1.
Here are some of the best celebrity Halloween costumes so far. This is iconic. This is dedication. This is Amelia de Moldenberg, the host of Chicken Shop Date, dressed as Roz from Monsters, Inc. Like, are we kidding? You will never guess who this is. Dressed up in an entire ET costume is Janelle Monáe. You mean to tell me Janelle Monáe is in there? Trisha Paytas and her husband Moses dressed up as Penelope and Colin from Bridgerton. I'm obsessed. And Trisha Paytas, Tana Mojo, and Holly Madison did a group costume as the Bimbets from Beauty and the Beast. This is so clever, I truly don't think I've ever seen anybody do this before. Eugene Lee Yang from the Try Guys dressed up as the other mother from Coraline. 10 out of 10, no notes, he is serving. Lizzo had 3 Halloween costumes this year. The first one was a face card. And with all of that Chanel, I bet it never declines. She also went as this figurine that looks so cool, but I could not tell you what it is. And lastly, she went as Ozempic, seemingly poking fun at all of the rumors about her recent weight loss journey. I love it. Kylie Jenner dressed up as Barbarella, Queen of the Galaxy, but she didn't just give us 1 rendition. She gave us 3, and she is gorgeous. For my Pokemon lovers, Khalid went as Brock from Pokemon. This is perfect, and I feel like we all had a little bit of a crush on Brock. The girl group Cat's Eye did an amazing group costume and went as the Winx Club. Chloe Bailey went as Jessica Rabbit, and she ate down. Can't believe I'm saying this, but this is Saweetie as the Joker. Lastly, Megan Thee Stallion had 2 costumes. First, she went as Starfire from Teen Titans, and the second was Trish Una from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and both were so good.
Scary facts that will blow your mind, part 3. It's been speculated by scientists that the light at the end of the tunnel when you're dying is actually you in the hospital being reborn into a new body. You're only given moments to sift through your memories and leave everything else behind. This, of course, is just a theory, but what if? Let me know what you think. Like and follow for more.
I told y'all, I called it.
But don't be too disappointed. Some people have been trying to bring the dire wolf back, and honestly, I'd rather resurrect this roid wolf than bring back Game of Thrones.
We really got dire wolves in 2025 before GTA. What a time. So dire wolves were an extinct species that would have dwarfed wolves today. At 7 foot 150, they would have shown wolves there's levels to this. Dire wolves were discontinued over 10,000 years ago, but as of right now, 3 dire wolf puppies have been born. Romulus, Remus, and yes, GOT fans, a little girl named Khaleesi. As we speak, they're being held in an undisclosed location with security, drones, and live cameras. So how did they do it? Well, 2 things. Dire wolves went extinct a minute ago, but their remains are all over the place, and their DNA is almost identical to gray wolves. So folks took the DNA from a 13,000-year-old tooth and a 72,000-year-old skull and used that to reverse engineer their genome. And because they share 99.5% of DNA, they basically edited gray wolf genes. And for reference, gray wolves have 19,000 genes. They just had to make 20 edits to 14 genes. Got them sounding like a Google doc, but now we talking about an expired wolf. A bunch of sciencey stuff later. They took donor domestic dog eggs, removed the nucleus, added the wolf edit, put the embryo in a surrogate, cooked for 65 days. Boom, we got dire wolves. Technically. Not really, they're more like genetically altered gray wolves, but you know what, close enough. Now that we done brought the dire back, scientists are talking about bringing past tense animals like the dodo, the thylacine, and even the woolly mammoth. Matter of fact, they already used mammoth DNA to create the woolly mouse, so we might get woolly mammoths before the 3rd Spider-Verse. I will say, there is a part of me that thinks about how nature spanked us every time we played God. Y'all know the Jurassic line. So worried about if we could, we just sped past whether we should. But the more you know.
Here's what your eye color says about you. If you have green eyes, you're extremely smart and never need to study because you just ace them anyway. If you have hazel eyes, you would do anything for the people you love and make a perfect friend. Now on the other side, if you have amber eyes, you have to study for every test. And you still only end up getting C's or D's. Now if you have brown eyes, you have the whole package. You're smart, athletic, and beautiful. And if you have blue eyes, this means you're a king or a queen because this is the best eye color.
The weirdest phobias in the world, part 4. Do you have a fear of going to school? If you do, it's called didascalenophobia. Most prevalent in kids ages 7 to 11. Believed to be stemmed from anxiety triggered by being separated from their parents, or tragically, the result of bullying. Do you have the didascalenophobia?
In case you didn't know, we have some crazy things happening in the world right now. Illinois became the first state to ban AI therapists. Honestly, I think that's a pretty good idea because, yeah, that's getting out of hand. A family's ash spreading ceremony was derailed by a Spotify ad for stuffed poop toys. It was during a Frank Sinatra song that they were playing while doing this.
This is is the quickest way to clear out stuck poop.
The #1 food for regular beans.
A 58-year-old grandmother from Canada currently holds the Guinness World Record for the longest abdominal plank by a woman, holding it for 4 hours and 30 minutes. I could probably do it for about 30 seconds and then I'm done, so bravo. What's your secret? Abby and Brittany, who are two well-known conjoined twins, had to pay 2 separate college tuition fees, but now earn only 1 salary at their job. A Mexican church made millions of dollars after announcing they were selling land in heaven for $100 per square meter. The pastor in charge said that he had permission from God, and they're even accepting Apple Pay. Wow, how convenient. Because all of that makes so much sense. A high school in the UK delayed its start time from 8:50 a.m. to 10 a.m. and this led to over 50% fewer illness-related absences and a 12% rise in exam success over a 4-year period. I feel like I would have done so much better in school if school started at 10 a.m. Maybe all of life should just start at 10 a.m. every day. I think that'd make things easier. Kind of makes sense, especially since teenagers usually need more sleep than adults. Would you want your school to do that? Or would you, I'm curious even like from a parent's point of view, since I'm a parent now, like would you want your kids to have that? I think it'd be good for my kids.
This is the story of the Phantom Killer. It was spring of 1946 and there was an unknown killer who wreaked hell and havoc on the town of Texarkana, Texas. This killer spent 10 weeks preying on multiple different couples, and he ended up killing around 5 people and injuring 3, and his first 2 victims were killed in a deserted place called Lover's Lane, but his next 2 victims, they didn't get that lucky. The scariest part about it was most of these attacks happened not during the day, but at night. So for months, people dreaded seeing the sunset because they knew when nightfall came, there was going to be another attack that hit their town. So guns and ammunition sales rose to an all-time high in Texarkana, and people locked themselves inside of their homes. So after months of the townspeople hiding away, a local named Virgil Starks, who was a well-known and loved farmer, was shot in the head by the Phantom Killer, and his killing spree came to an end.
Craziest things people confess to before passing, part 3. A woman named Geraldine Kelly was in the hospital losing her fight to breast cancer when she confessed to her daughter that she had unalived her husband and her daughter's father. It's said that Geraldine's husband John was very abusive to her, and she finally had enough and shot him and then hid him in the freezer. She'd tell the kids and the family that he had passed in a car accident, but she actually had him stuffed in the freezer for over 13 years, and then police would look into this. After Geraldine passed, they'd check this out, and his body, very decomposed, would be found in the freezer. While reading Bible verses to a patient, a nurse says that the patient would bust out crying and say, "I didn't mean to drop that baby in the well." For the next one, the person says their uncle got into a very bad car accident, and on the way in the ambulance, the uncle would look over and say, "Tell my wife that Wendy is my daughter and I love her." Uncle would soon pass, but it would turn out that Wendy was the next door neighbor's daughter who was 5 years old. And it's no surprise that after all this, the neighbors would divorce.
Do any of you know the true story that this movie is allegedly based on? The Strangers franchise has been around for a while, but there are allegations of which story this is actually connected to. I'm pretty sure we covered it on the show a while ago. It's a lot worse than you might think. While it's technically unconfirmed, most people are going to relate it to the Ketty Cabin murders from 1981. Sue Sharp was a single mom at the time, and she had 5 children when she separated from her husband. So after she left, she moved all of her kids and herself to this remote cabin up in Ketty, California. Woodsy area, there's not much going on here, so you wouldn't expect to see anybody. That changed on the night of April 11th, 1981, when there were unexpected visitors. The morning after the 11th, one of Sue's daughters, who slept over at a friend's, came home where she found her mother, her brother's friend, dead, and her sister missing. But most mysteriously, some of the younger children survived and claimed to witness unexpected visitors who have still never been caught.
These are phobias you didn't know you had, part 3. Okay, so take a look at this photo. If you look at it, do you get scared in any way? Or what about this photo? Do you feel like you just want to stay inside and not even look outside after looking at this photo? If so, then you might have astrophobia, which is the intense fear of thunder and lightning. This typically only affects children, but many adults still experience this fear. Astrophobia is also one of the most common phobias to have. But the final test to see if you have astrophobia is this video I'm about to show you. If you feel anything or get scared in any way, you 100% have astrophobia.
pictures will make you look twice. And the fruit around this cup look like green parrots. Am I the only one who sees that? And these look like baby faces instead of knees. And these traffic lights look like they're staring directly into our soul. And this is the inside of a guitar, but why does it look like a little apartment? And this piece of opal looks like a sunset in the clouds. At first glance, it looks like the Grim Reaper is staring at this girl, but she's actually just airing out a sheet. And it looks like this guy is sniffing this guy's shoulder, but it's actually just the TV at the perfect moment. And at first glance, it looks like this hockey player doesn't have a head, but his helmet actually fell off and his head is in that guy's shoulder.
This man is scared he will never die. Ismail Azizi from Tanzania has reportedly been declared medically dead by doctors on 6 separate occasions, but has come back to life every single time and no one can explain how. In a recent documentary by Afromax, they report that the first time he died was after a workplace accident. He was taken to the hospital in critical condition and soon after, doctors declared him dead, not some randoms off the street. His body was taken to the morgue while his family started preparing his funeral. But to their bewilderment, he regained consciousness and walked out of the morgue onto the street like he was taking a nap. And that was only round 1. He died again after catching malaria, but this time he made it all the way to the coffin before yet again waking up at his own funeral. Now this became a literal cycle for years. Death 3 was after a car accident where he collided with a fuel tank and put him in a coma. But like clockwork at this point, after being pronounced dead by medical professionals again, he woke up. And at this point, even the doctors were getting freaked out. Death 4 was after he got bit by a venomous snake, but this time he spent a whopping 3 days in the morgue. And that really convinced his family that Ishmael was gone for good this time. But no, because when they went to go retrieve his body for his 4th funeral, he woke up again. Now after his 5th death, he fell into a toilet pit. His community started getting a little scared, and they became convinced beyond reasonable doubt that he was a witch or a ghost. So you know what they decided to do? Burn his house down with him inside to try and kill him for the 6th and final time. And guess what? They were successful. Until he woke up again. Bro, I'd be scared too. I couldn't die. And now, after all of this, he has to live in an isolated old house with no neighbors. Because apparently, he's a bit of a local legend and people are too scared to live near him. He also said he can't get a job either as a result of the stigma. Bro, one meeting with JD Vance, cook him for sure.
Scary things you should never ask Alexa. Never ask Alexa if she's working with the CIA. And if for some reason you ignore this video and you ask anyway, she will start turning on and off. Next thing you should never have her do is greet your new guests. A girl asked Alexa to do this, and over the period of about a year, Alexa started naming the guests of dead family members every time she walked by. If that was my Alexa, she would learn how to fly because I would throw that thing farther than Tom Brady would. Finally, never ask Alexa about the dead. Alexa will then start laughing and repeat over and over again, they're here, they're here. Again, if this was my Alexa, she'd be scattered across the concrete. Don't do that, Alexa. Don't do that.
Here are some things that almost no humans can do. Now this requires super flexible fingers and only 3% of people can do this. This is called the finger twist. And this is called the paralyzed finger trick and only 1% of people can do this. You place your hand down on the table and bend your middle finger like this. Now try to lift your ring finger off the table. Number 3, this is where you raise one eyebrow like this guy. And only 5% of people can do this. Number 4, this is where you make a V shape with your hand like this. And only 4% of people can do it. Can you?
This 14-year-old ended his classmate's life for wearing makeup to school. Lawrence Phobes King, also known as Larry, was born on January 13th of 1983 in Ventura, California. By 2008, Larry was 15 years old and a student at E.O. Green Junior High in Oxnard. Larry had a difficult upbringing and he spent a lot of time in the foster care system, but at school, Larry was known as outgoing, artistic, and confident. Larry loved to draw, sing, and experiment with fashion, like wearing makeup to school, jewelry, and even wearing high-heeled boots. But since Larry was so open about being who they were, it also made Larry an easy target. Some classmates admired Larry for their courage while others bullied Larry. And one of those students would be 14-year-old Brandon McIerney. Just days before tragedy, Larry would now go by the name Letitia. Letitia, aka Larry, asked Brandon to be their Valentine, and this left Brandon angry and humiliated. On February 12th of 2008, in the school's computer lab, Brandon pulled out a handgun and shot Letitia, aka Larry, in the back of the head in front of all of their classmates. Letitia, aka Larry, was rushed to the hospital, but 2 days later was pronounced brain dead. Larry's family made the heartbreaking decision to remove them from the life support. The murder was quickly labeled as a hate crime, and Brandon was tried as an adult. Brandon pled guilty for a plea deal and was sentenced to 21 years in prison.
3 amazing extinct animals you didn't know about. Part 2. Number 3. Platybelodon was a kind of prehistoric mammal that looked like an elephant with a shovel-shaped trunk. This elephant ancestor roamed the earth about 15 million years ago. It used its unique shovel-like trunk to scoop up aquatic plants in marshes and rivers. Even though it sounds like something out of sci-fi, Platybelodon was very much real. Number 2. Hoplitomeryx, also known as the five-horned deer, was a prehistoric deer species that lived on the Gargano Island in Italy. This one-of-a-kind deer sported 5 horns, making it stand out from today's deer. Each pair had its distinct shape and size. Aside from its impressive antlers, Hoplitomeryx also had elongated upper canines, looking almost like fangs, adding to its peculiar appearance. Number 1. The lead Sichthys, the biggest fish to have ever existed. This prehistoric giant fish lived about 165 million years ago. Measuring between 52 to 72 feet, this fish was longer than a school bus. It mainly fed on plankton and tiny creatures. Lead Sichthys fossils were first discovered in England.
Objects that attracts demons into your house. Evil Eye Isaiah 2:06. Dreamcatcher Deuteronomy 18:10-12. Karen K. Jeremiah 10:14. Mystical Stone Romans 1:25. Figure Psalm 31-6. Signs Isaiah 3:18-21.
Everyone's talking about The Conjuring Last Rites, but what they don't know is that it's based on the Smurl family's terrifying true story. In August of 1973, Jack and Janet Smurl moved into a double-block house in West Pittston, Pennsylvania with their 2 children. The other half of the home was occupied by Jack's parents, John and Mary, and eventually Jack and Janet welcomed twins to the family. But after being in that new home, they started to experience strange things. The family noticed subtle signs that something was wrong, like tools started to go missing, they smelled this foul odor, and then all of a sudden, kitchen appliances that weren't plugged in started to catch on fire. All that stuff was happening at their home. Jack's mother Mary ends up suffering a heart attack, and even though he had got a recent promotion at his job, he was still struggling to make ends meet, and all that creepy stuff that was happening in their home was getting worse. Janet and Mary started to hear voices that sounded like each other, and Janet even claimed that when she was asleep that a ghost had SA'd her. It got so bad that the family and their dog were being thrown into the walls, and Jack had even been SA'd by the ghost as well. By January of 1986, they were desperate for help, so they called Ed and Lorraine Warren. As the Warrens were walking around the home, they invoked the name of Jesus and told the spirit to reveal itself, and almost immediately, the spirit reacted. Ed did an assessment on the house, and whatever spirit was haunting the family was very powerful and dangerous. Between January and August, the Warrens would go to the home often, and they truly believed that a demon was haunting the home. Others, meanwhile, weren't buying it, and since the Warrens were helping this family, that's why others were skeptical. Ed and Lorraine Warren had no type of credentials, and this made others believe that this story was just a hoax or a ghost story. While everyone was being very skeptical with the Smurl family and what was happening to them, the Smurl family and the Warrens asked a priest to come by the home to do an exorcist. The priest performed 3 exorcisms, and all 3 were unsuccessful. Janet claimed that the exorcism had failed because the demon was going back and forth between the home and going to different parts of the home when an exorcism was being done. In the eyes of skeptics, Jack's medical history didn't help. In 1983, he had surgery to remove water from his brain, and that caused short-term memory loss. Additionally, a priest had stayed at the home for 2 days and claimed that nothing paranormal happened and everything seemed normal. About a year later, Janet claimed that they were still having strange things happening in the home, but it wasn't as bad as before. The Smurl family ended up moving out of the home, and the next person to move in claimed that she never had a supernatural experience in the home. The Conjuring Last Rites just dropped this weekend, so let me know if you're gonna go see it or already have.
Abandoned places then aren't now. Rosie, the shark then. Now. Teletubbies then. Now. Tots TV House then. Now. Lolita, the orca whale then. Now. Disney's Discovery Island then. Now. River Country Park then. Now.
Imagine your child being eaten alive at Disneyland. I can't imagine anything more horrific. It was a gorgeous day on the 14th of June 2014 in Orlando, Florida. Adorable little 2-year-old Lane Graves was on holiday with his 4-year-old sister and his parents, Matt and Melissa. Lane was from Nebraska and he was described as bright, really loving. Even though he was only like a tiny little boy, he just had this massive personality. He had this really warm, kind-hearted nature. Now the family was staying at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and they had so much fun planned for their trip. They were really looking forward to spending the summer together. The resort is absolutely gorgeous. There's no way you would ever associate it with such a horrific incident. The resort did have a lagoon. It was absolutely gorgeous, like I said, but the lagoon did have a very small sign that indicated no swimming, obviously. Nowhere at the lagoon did it say that the waters were alligator infested. It looked like a calm, peaceful lake type of vibe, the place where I would just absolutely love to go with my family, just sit and enjoy the water. You would think that obviously as long as parents are there making sure that their kid doesn't actually go inside the water to drown, that everything would be safe. At 8:30 that evening, the family were chilling, building a little sandcastle on the beach area by the lagoon. And the little boy's dad was right by him, literally right next to him. But in a split second, suddenly everything just went to absolute horror. He heard a splash and out of nowhere an alligator jumped out of the water and grabbed the little boy by the head. Matt obviously immediately ran into the water trying to grab the alligator, trying to risk his life to save his little son, as you would. Unfortunately, the alligator was extremely strong and it just made Matt a target too. Both the dad and the little boy were pulled underwater. Bear in mind there are other families as well, witnessing this horror unfold. Sadly, it was too late. This all happened in the blink of an eye. Witnesses of this horror attack actually passed out because of how traumatic and hideous it was to witness. Matt was raced to hospital and eyewitnesses said that he had blood all over his hands and his face. Horrifically, the little boy was pronounced dead. He was found in the water hours later. It actually came out later that 2 people had been into the resort to report that there were alligators around, that they'd witnessed alligators, but clearly nothing had been done.